Hi guys and welcome to one and only episode of Executive Delegates Law Discussion for BSA 2A. Today we'll talk about Title 8 to 11 of the Corporation Code, which is about the books of the corporation, mergers and consolidation, the appraisal right of stockholders, and non-stock corporations. So if you like this video and you wanna see more, please hit the like button. Also, please remember that this is only for educational purposes and is not a substitute for proper legal advice or for studying and understanding the law. Now, let's begin.
Title 8 Corporate Books and Records. Section 73 Books to be kept, Stock Transfer Agent. So, what are the records that a corporation must keep? Every corporation needs to keep and carefully preserve the following at its principal office. First, important documents: the articles of incorporation, bylaws, and all their amendments. Second, ownership information: list of all the stockholders or members, details about voting rights and ownership structures. Third, board and officers information: the names and addresses of all the board of directors or trustees and executive officers. Fourth, business transactions: records of all business activities of the corporation. Fifth, resolutions: copies of all the decisions made by the board of directors or trustees and of the stockholders or members. Sixth, required reports: copies of the reports submitted to the government's commission. And lastly, seventh, meeting minutes: detailed notes of all meetings, including when and where they were held, how it is authorized, the agenda, attendance, whether it is regular or special, and if it is special, its object, and all the decisions made. If someone disagrees with the decision, their protest must also be included if they requested it. Next, inspection of records. Directors, trustees, stockholders, or members can inspect or request copies of these records during business hours on working days. They must make a written request and pay for the cost of copies. Competitors and those acting against the corporation's interest cannot access these records. Next, confidentiality rules. Anyone inspecting the records must follow laws about confidentiality, including laws about trade secrets, data privacy, and securities regulations. Next, penalties. Stockholders who misuse their inspection rights can be punished. Corporate officers who block inspection without any valid reason may have to pay damages and face penalties as well. If the refusal is approved by the board members responsible will also be liable unless they have valid defense. Lastly, stock and transfer book. Corporation must keep a stock and transfer book that records stockholders' names, payments made, and details of stock transfer. Books should be stored at the main office or with the licensed stock transfer agent. Companies that trade stocks in the secondary market needs an independent transfer agent. Section 74. Rights to financial statements. A stockholder or member has a right to the financial statements of the corporation. A written request is required, and the corporation must respond within 10 days. The statements should comply with the government standards. During regular meetings, the board must present the financial report of the past year, including certified financial statements. If the corporation's assets or liabilities are less than 600,000 pesos, the president and treasurer can certify the financial statements under oath. Title 9, Mergers and Consolidations. Section 75, Plan of Merger or Consolidation. First, what is a merger or consolidation? A merger occurs when two or more corporations combine into one existing corporation, leaving the others dissolved, while consolidation, on the other hand, creates a completely new corporation from two or more entities, with all old new corporations ceasing to exist. Steps to merger or consolidation. So each corporation's board of directors or trustees must approve a written plan that outlines the merger or consolidation. So what does that plan should include? First, corporation's name, the names of all the corporations involved. Second, terms and processes, the conditions and the steps of merger or consolidation. Third, changes to corporate documents, updates to the articles of incorporation for the surviving or newly formed corporation. Fourth, and lastly, additional details. Any other necessary details or information to make the merger or consolidation successful must also be included in that plan.
Section 76. Stockholders or members approval. After the board of directors or trustee of each corporation involved approves the merger or conciliation plan, the plan is presented to the stockholder or members at a special meeting. To approve the plan, at least two-thirds of the stockholders or members of each corporation must vote in favor. Articles of Merger or Consolidation, or Section 77. After approval, the corporation involved must be prepared and sign official documents called Articles of Merger or Articles of Consolidation. These documents must include details like the merger plan, the number of shares or members, the votes for or against the plan, and the assets and the liabilities of each corporation. Effectivity of merger or consolidation are Section 78. After the articles are approved by the Commission, the merger or consolidation becomes official. For certain companies, like banks or public utilities, approval from the relevant government agency is required first. If the Commission finds any issues with the plan, it will hold a hearing where the corporation involved can present their case. Effects of merger or consolidation, Section 79. Once effective, the companies become a single corporation. The surviving or consolidation corporation and the separate existence of original companies end. The new corporation inherits all rights, privilege, assets, and responsibilities of the original company, including debts and the legal obligation.
Have you ever wondered that if you become a stockholder, would it be possible to get out of the corporation if things go south? The answer? No. On becoming a stockholder, you cannot pull out of the corporation just because it did not go as you expected. It is only possible upon the liquidation of the corporate assets or by finding a willing buyer. Let's say you dissented in a corporate action wherein the vote of two-thirds is needed. Can you pull out of the corporation then? The answer? Yes, by exercising your appraisal right. Exercising your appraisal right means you're demanding the payment of your shares of stock in a corporation for its fair market value. So, when can you exercise this so-called appraisal right? According to Section 80 of the RCCP, you can exercise this right in the following cases. First, if the amendment of the Articles of Incorporation will result to either A. Changing or restricting the rights of any stockholder, B. Authorizing preferences in any respect superior to those of outstanding shares of any class, C. By extending or shortening the corporate term. Second, if the corporation will dispose of all or substantially all of its assets. Third, in cases of mergers and consolidations. And then fourth, in case of investment of corporate funds for any purposes other than the corporation's primary purpose. Now that we know when the appraisal right may be exercised, let's now know how it should be done. Section 81 of the RCCP provides that the stockholder can exercise their right upon giving a written demand within 30 days when the vote for a corporate action was taken. And of course, after this period lapses, they may not be able to exercise it anymore. Additionally, the basis for the fair market value of the corporate shares would be its value the day before the said corporate vote was taken. So, we now know the when and the how. Let's now talk about the who, as in who will determine the value of the corporate stocks. The answer? It would be the stockholder in the corporation. However, had the stockholder and the corporation not been able to decide on the share's fair market value within 60 days of the approval of the corporate action, then appraisers will come to action. These appraisers will be the disinterested persons who will determine the fair market value of the shares. These persons are composed of one person chosen by the stockholder, another person chosen by the corporation, and a third person which are chosen by those first two. So, we have now established the when, the how, and the who. What about the what? As in, what are the effects of the exercise of such right? Section 82 provides that upon the exercise of the appraisal right, first, all rights accruing to the shares, including its voting and dividend rights, will be suspended. Second, the dissenting stockholder will be entitled to receive payment of the fair value of his shares. Third, if the corporation have yet to pay within 30 days of the determination of the fair value of the stocks, its voting rights and dividend rights will be restored. Then fourth, upon payment by the corporation, all the rights of the stockholder will be terminated. And lastly, payment may only be made if the corporation has unrestricted retained earnings. Now, when does this right to payment ceases? According to Section 83, the general rule is that once you have exercised your right, you may not withdraw such right anymore unless, first, the corporation consents such withdrawal. Second, the proposed corporate action is disapproved by the SEC. Third, the proposed corporate action is abandoned or rescinded by the corporation. And then lastly, the SEC determines that the stockholder is not entitled to his appraisal right. Now, who bears the cost of appraisal? The general rule is that the corporation will be the one who bears the cost of appraisal. The exception is that when the fair value that was appraised by the appraisers is the same or approximately the same as to what the corporation has previously offered to pay. In this case, the stockholder will be the one who will bear the cost of appraisal. And lastly, let's now go to Section 85, which says that the dissenting stockholder must submit the stock certificate to the corporation within 10 days of demanding payment. The certificate will be notated by the corporation to show that such shares are dissenting shares. Had the stockholder failed to do so, the corporation may terminate all the rights of the stockholder. So, given that the stocks are already labeled as dissenting shares, what would happen if it is transferred? According to Section 85, once dissenting shares are transferred, first, the rights of the transferor shall cease and the transferee shall have all the rights of a dissenting stockholder. And then second, All dividend distributions which would have accrued on such shares shall be paid to the transferee. We are now finished with the Title 10 of the Revised Corporation Code. Just a simple reminder that this right exists for the fairness for dissenting stockholders, and it must follow the provisions stated by the law. Let's now move on to Title 11, which talks about non-stock corporations.
Title 11 of the Revised Corporation Code is all about non-stock corporation. Section 86 defines non-stock corporation as an organization that does not distribute profits to its members, trustees, or officers. So, any profits generated are used to further the corporation's specific purpose. While non-stock corporations have distinct characteristics, they are still subject to many of the same rules as stock corporations, especially when there are no specific provisions governing the non-stock corporations.
So now let's proceed to Section 87, the purposes of non-stock corporation. Non-stock corporations are established for non-profit purposes, such as charitable, like the Gawad Kalinga who builds houses and give jobs to poor families. Religious, organizations like Iglesia ni Cristo who offers worship services and help people in need. Educational, like the Philippine Science High School Foundation who gives scholarships and supports schools for students to learn better in science. Civic service, like the Rotary Club of Manila, who organizes activities like medical missions and help disaster victims. They may also include organizations like trade, industry, and agricultural chambers or combinations of this. Their purposes align with specific provisions governing non-stock entities.
In non-stock corporation, instead of stockholders, there are members. In Section 88, it states that the right of the members of any class to vote may be limited, broadened, or denied to the extent specified in the Articles of Incorporation or the bylaws. This means that a member of a non-stock corporation may be denied of his right to vote. But if there is no stipulation in the Articles of Incorporation or the bylaws, a member is entitled to one vote. Additionally, a member may vote by proxy, in accordance with the provision of this code, unless otherwise provided in the articles or the bylaws. And the bylaws may likewise authorize voting through remote communication and/or in absentia. Section 89 states that membership in a non-stock corporation and all the rights arising therefrom are personal and non-transferable. This is contrary to stock corporations wherein shareholders may generally transfer their shares. Here in non-stock corporation, the general rule is that membership and all the rights arising therefrom are personal, thus they cannot be transferred. The only exception is when the contrary is provided for in the Articles of Incorporation or the bylaws. If so, the transfer of membership will be valid as long as the terms and conditions stated are strictly complied with. The termination of membership in non-stock corporation is allowed in Section 90 as long as in the manner and for the causes provided in the Articles of Incorporation or the bylaws. The requirements for termination of membership is first, notice to the member, and second, the opportunity to be heard. The termination will result to the extinguishment of the rights of the member in the corporation or in its property unless otherwise provided in the Articles of Incorporation or the bylaws.
Section 91, Trustees and Officers. Number of terms of leaders or trustees. Corporations can have 15 trustees who can lead up to 3 years. If someone leaves before their term ends, someone is chosen to finish their time. The Philippine Red Cross have 15 trustees who can serve up to 3 years to manage all efforts to help people across the country. Eligibility. Who can be a trustee? Only members of the corporation can be a trustee, except for special cases where independent trustees are needed. In the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, only lawyers who are members of the group can be trustees. Direct election of officers. Members may directly elect their officers unless the bylaws or articles specify otherwise. Members of the Philippine Nurses Associations vote directly for their leaders during annual meetings. Section 92. List of members and proxies and the meeting venue. Membership records. Corporations must keep an updated list of their members and their representatives or proxies. This list should be ready 20 days before the elections. The Philippine Medical Association updates its list of doctors and their proxies to ensure fair voting during the election. Meeting locations. Meetings can be held outside the corporation's main office as long as the members are informed in advance. All meetings must be held within the Philippines.
Section 93 provides that when non-stock corporation dissolves, the assets are distributed in a specific order. First is that all liabilities and obligations of the corporation must be paid or adequately provided for. Next is that assets held with specific conditions for return, transfer, or conveyance must be handled according to those conditions. Third is that assets held for like charitable, religious, educational, or similar purposes, but without specific return conditions, should be transferred to organizations with similar purposes. Next is that if articles of incorporation or bylaws specify how assets should be distributed to members or the classes of the members, so those provisions will be followed. So in any other cases, the assets can be distributed to any person, society, organization, or other corporation as outlined in the specific distribution of the plan adopted under the relevant laws. The goal is to ensure that the corporation's assets are used for the purposes it was originally formed for, even after the dissolution of the corporation. So, Section 94, Plan of Distribution of Assets, explains that a non-stock corporation undergoing dissolution must follow a process to distribute its assets. So, this process involves these steps. So, the first one is that Board of Trustees of the corporation must adopt a resolution recommending a specific plan for distributing the assets. So, the resolution should be in line with the provision of the corporation code. Next is that the corporation must notify all members entitled to vote about the plan of distribution. So this notice should include the summary of the plan, the details of the meeting where the plan will be voted on. Next is that the plan of distribution must be approved by at least two-thirds of the members with voting rights who are present or represented by proxy at that meeting. So the corporation ensures a fair and legal distribution of its assets, adhering to its purpose and the regulations governing the non-stock corporations.
So that's it for the discussion on Title 8 to 11 of the code. I hope you may have picked up a thing or two and thank you for your attention. See you soon guys. Bye.